Are you thinking about going to Mitchell Hamline? Or have you been accepted already and you start soon? Watch this video. This is everything you need to know. If you are considering joining the blended program or considering Mitchell Hamline as an option, this video is for you. This is a video about all the things that I wish I knew prior to starting at Mitchell Hamline. So my name is Marquise Hines. I am the owner of Hines Law Firm here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I went to Mitchell Hamline. I started Mitchell Hamline in 2021. And I graduated in December of 2023. So the blended program is for people who don't necessarily want to do a full-time Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday law school program. The blended program requires a certain amount of in-person hours every semester, but the most of it is done asynchronous from your home. You'll have weekly deliverables that you'll have to make sure that you do. But for the most part, it gives you the flexibility and autonomy to do law school that fits your needs and fits your personal lifestyle. So Mitchell Hamline was a great option for me at the time. I was working as a police officer. I couldn't afford to go to law school full time. So I looked up a bunch of different law programs across the country as I was starting my search for different law schools, and Mitchell Hamline popped up as one of my top choices. Ultimately, I ended up getting into Mitchell Hamline. I'll try to be as transparent as possible so that anybody considering Mitchell Hamline, they can make an informed decision. Now, when I got accepted into Mitchell Hamline, I applied in the end of November of 2020, and I received my acceptance about mid-December. So I believe I received an email around the 12th or the 13th of December saying, hey, you've been accepted into Mitchell Hamline. I still have that email here. I keep it up as a reminder of, how far, I've come in as an attorney, but just also as a constant reminder of my thankfulness to Mitchell Hamline in the program. I received a 75% scholarship. I've heard people receiving as little as 10. I've heard people receiving a full ride. So it kind of just depends on how strong your package is in terms of applying to the school. Of course, they're going to consider your LSAT. Of course, they're going to consider your GPA. Both my GPA and my LSAT were not the strongest. My LSAT score was a 151, which at the time that I took it, that was the national average. That was the median score for the LSAT. My GPA was below average. I'll keep that to myself. However, I did receive a pretty decent scholarship. I attribute that to applying early. I would definitely, anybody considering Mitchell Hamline, I would definitely consider applying early and that goes with any law school. I believe that's where most of the money is given out and early in the admissions process. So the earlier you apply, the better you likely are at receiving some type of scholarship. So applied, end up getting in, and then of course it's the waiting game. Once I paid for to reserve my seat, I missed the waiting game, and likely if you have been accepted into Mitchell Hamline and you're watching this video, these are the things that you likely are looking to know prior to starting. So the first thing is I'll talk about Capstone and Prep Week. What to expect from that. So Capstone and Prep Week are the two times where you are obligated to be in person at Mitchell Hamline. Oftentimes it's a 7 or 8 day stint each time, with the exception of Prep Week in January. That's normally just a 3-day Friday, Saturday, Sunday, unless things have changed. But for the most part, you should plan to spend about 7 or 8 days in the St. Paul area, completing Capstone and Prep Week. The days are long. They're normally about 10-hour days. I remember us starting around 8 a.m., wrapping up close to 6 p.m. each night. There will be, depending on your class, there might be homework, there might be reading assignments. Oftentimes they'll give you the reading assignments prior to you showing up for Capstone, so you know what to expect. Sometimes you'll get your reading assignments that day and they'll say, hey, have this done by the next day. Yes, it can be a lot. Yes, Capstone is meant to be a lot. It is, that's one of the 2 times that you'll be there the entire semester. So yes, it is a lot. However, I don't want anybody stressing out too much You hear the dreaded cold calls, you hear the dreaded just preparation stories or people not being prepared and being put on blast. I think I experienced that or observed that one time. It didn't happen to me personally. Probably in my 2.5 years at Mitchell Hamline, I observed that one time. I wouldn't be too focused on cold calling and not knowing. That's not to say don't be prepared. It's just not the end of the world. Even if you are called on and you don't know the answer to whatever question is being asked, it's not the end of the world. But again, being prepared is obviously better than not being prepared. So when it comes to Capstone, I'll break it down first starting with the hotels. There's a link on Mitchell Hamline's website that has recommended hotels where they are close to the school. You'll have some, depending on the hotel, you might have even a shuttle bus that takes you to and from the school, which will save you money in terms of Uber, renting a car. You can opt to take or stay at one of these hotels. I don't know whether or not there's a relationship between the school and the hotels. There may be some type of booking code. I would look into that. But for the most part, if you plan on staying at the hotels recommended on the school's website, you might want to book those early because likely they will sell out. I never stayed at any of these hotels. I stayed closer to the airport each time I went to Capstone or Prep Week, and that was just my preference. I always rented a car in case, and it ended up happening. We want to go out, class, go out to eat, go to different sporting events, things like that. I didn't want to rely on Uber for all of that, so I always rented a car. And with that, I always stayed near the airport just so that when it came time to leave, I'd drive 5 minutes and get gas, be right there at the airport. So it's just up to you, depends on what you want to do. But that was just my preference in terms of rental car and getting a hotel. Something else to consider with the hotels, if you do decide to stay at a hotel where a lot of your classmates are staying, you are going to run into a lot of your classmates. You are going to interact more with some of your classmates, which is a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what type of studying you like to do. If you like to study by yourself, you don't want to see everybody, it's just preference. I didn't hear any bad experiences of, staying in the same hotel as a lot of the other students. It's just some more so, again, your preference. When it came to the hotels per week, I would anticipate spending about $1,000 to $1,200 per stay if you're getting a hotel for 8 nights. And again, I went to law school because I'm not the greatest at math, but if you get a hotel for about $120 per night, times that by 8, you're looking at close to $900 to $1,000. So just something to consider. Obviously, the more expensive the hotel, the more you're spending each trip. So factor that in. When it comes to airfare, again, make sure that you're budgeting for that. I'm not gonna say what airline I took, but for the most part, if you could rack up some points with certain airlines, and I'm not saying it because I'm not getting paid. If you can rack up airline points, you're going at least 4 times a year. So if you can get any points or any perks, obviously go with an airline of your choice. Each trip, round trip from Vegas to Minneapolis, I would say it was somewhere around $300. So I would factor that into your budget in terms of getting to and from Minnesota. Some people drove in if they lived fairly close, whether it's Chicago or somewhere in Wisconsin, they were able to drive in. But for the most part, most people will be flying in. So keep that in mind. Food options near Mitchell Hamline, there's a bunch of different restaurants around there. Oftentimes for lunch, we would get somewhere between an hour and an hour and a half for lunch. So you can go, there's a 5-minute walk and there's a main street with a bunch of different restaurants. I forget the name of the street, but it is the street in the St. Paul area where you can go and find a bunch of different restaurants. So even afterwards, even after class, you can go have some drinks. Again, everything is within walking distance. Be mindful that in the springtime, in the summertime, St. Paul has some of the best weather you'll ever experience. And in the winter times, they have some of the worst weather you'll ever experience. So always plan ahead, make sure that you are dressing appropriately for the weather, and keep that in mind when you are walking. If you decide you don't want to rent a car, some of these walks, that 5 minutes in -10 is different than that 5-minute walk in 60, 70 degree weather. So keep that in mind. I would also make sure that you don't just center your in-person time in St. Paul, Minneapolis around school. Yes, that's the priority. Yes, that is why we are there. That's why you're going. However, the cities have a bunch of different things that you can do. I found myself at the Mall of America almost every trip when I went to Minneapolis, whether it's going to the movies, whether it's going to eat. There's a bunch of different things you can do at Mall of America, but they also have a bunch of different things in downtown Minneapolis, whether you're going to a sporting event or going to certain clubs. We did it all in my 2.5 years. It was a good experience, and I'm grateful for that. You can tell by my little smirk. It was a good time. So don't just solely focus on going to school, going to your hotel, going to school, going to your hotel. Find some time to have some fun while you are there, because it is a great city and there's a lot to see. So in summary, just wrapping up, getting there, I would say make sure that your whole time at Mitchell Hamline isn't just about law school. Make some connections, explore the city, find ways to make the experience something that you'll remember forever. Again, if you're just going to and from school, it's not going to be the best experience. However, keep the main thing the main thing, is what I tell everybody. Keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is getting through law school and passing the bar. So next, we'll talk about things that I wish I knew academic-wise in terms of starting school. And the first thing is Quimbee. Quimbee is a platform, and again, I graduated at the end of 2023, so if things have changed, it just have changed. But at the time, Quimbee was a great tool. A lot of times you'll get reading assignments, and if you read every single case that you're assigned, that could, and I'll be 100%, honest, my weekly, hourly input for law school was about, and it ranged, but I would say probably 25 to 30 hours per week, doing assignments, whether it's writing papers, reading cases, discussion posts, whatever it is that we had to do. I put in about 25 to 30 hours. Depending on the week, it could have dropped to maybe 22 hours, or it could have rose to 35 hours a week. But for the most part, 25 to 30 was where I was at. But Quimbee saved me at least 10 hours per week. Just because if you're given a case by one of your professors, instead of reading that one case for an hour, Quimbee can summarize that case, give you the holding, give you the issue, give you everything that you need within a 5-minute time frame. They also have videos which are pretty great at breaking things down. Quimbee, if y'all want to send me a check, y'all can. But even without any type of, I don't get paid for the endorsement of Quimbee. Quimbee was arguably the #1 tool for me in law school. Highly recommended at the time. I want to say it was somewhere around $20 a month. I could be completely off base, but it wasn't too expensive. And even if it was $100 a month, I still would pay for it. So that's one thing that I wish I had. The video lectures, the study guides that it had, 100% recommend Quimbee. Second, what I would recommend is the short and happy guides. You could find these on Amazon. So the short and happy guides are essentially, back in the days, depending on how old you are, you might remember the books for idiots. They used to have quick books for idiots, or eBay for idiots, or whatever it is. To me, this is similar to that. It breaks down things to a very digestible way, so that when you're reading certain things, and I'll give you an example, one of the hardest classes that you'll take in law school, I believe it's in our 1L, is property. Everybody hates property. It's my law school best friend. She loved property, but she was the only one that loved property. Property, it sucks, and it sucks for everybody. So it's good to have great outlines. It's good to have great resources. And the short and happy guides are that. It breaks things down to very bite-sized, digestible pieces, so that when you're writing your essays, when you're answering certain questions, the rules make sense, as opposed to trying to bring the whole property world and condense it. it breaks it down very easily for you. So they have those with contracts, which is another great one, short and happy guide. They have it for contracts, they have it for criminal law, they have it for criminal procedure, civil procedure. I believe they have one for civil procedure. But either way, look into the short and happy guide. Civ Pro, civil procedure, is another one of those classes where you're like, I'm not getting this at all. Get the short and happy guides. It'll make your life 100 times easier. So those are two things that I recommend, the Quimbee and the short and happy guides. Third, I would recommend finding a outline from your professor online or from a previous student who had them maybe last year or the year before. A lot of times these professors, they teach the same syllabus for 10 years. So their syllabus might not change, which means that their outline, a student's outline, might still be applicable from 2-3 years ago. I was able to find a few outlines on Outline Depot, but again, find some upperclassmen, reach out, talk to them, and you can find them. There's a bunch of different Facebook groups. There's LinkedIn. Find somebody that was an upperclassman not too many years before you, ask them for an outline, get on Outline Depot, see if there's an outline that you can find, and you'll be able to take that outline to create your own outline. One of the mistakes that a lot of people make is that they do rely on other people's outline though. Do not do that. Always create your own outline, and you have to start outlining from day one. I don't care what anybody says, outlining from day one will save you not just a bunch of headaches later, but it'll save you hours towards the end of the semester. If you try to wait until you reach the end of the semester to start outlining, you are behind the curve, and there are people who have been outlining since the very beginning who are studying theirs week by week. So what I would do every weekend, I would take all my notes from this week and add it to my outline for those different classes. And then once you reach the end of the semester, right before finals, you can go through those outlines, get rid of what you don't think is applicable, and save what formalize what is going to be important so that your outline makes sense. But do not try to wait until the end of the semester to try to start outlining. Start early and often is what they say. So next I'll talk about the community experience in terms of your section. Mitchell Hamline breaks things up each year. So let's say you're starting in 2026. There will be 3 blended sections for that year of 2026. There will also be a brick and mortar student group, but you won't have too much interactions with them. So there will be 3 different sections. I was in section 2, and in that section 2, those are going to be your classmates for at a minimum the next 2 years, but a lot of y'all will graduate at the same time. Some may graduate early, some may graduate late. I was able to graduate 6 months earlier than anticipated just because I packed and crammed my summer classes and my J-term classes. I didn't really take a break just because I was just ready to get through and done with the program. Some would say that's not very wise because it was taxing, but being real, it was not that hard. I went to the Air Force before. I went to a corrections academy, a police academy. This was school. I didn't have anybody yelling at me. I didn't have anybody, making me do push-ups in between classes. This, again, law school is not easy, but it's not hard. So I figured just push through. I was able to get through in that 2.5 years, which I'm grateful for. But back to the community aspect. As soon as you start, I would start, and this is, if you're an introvert, it might be a little difficult, but find other introverts. Create a study group. I highly recommend getting into a study group of 3 to 4. I wouldn't go any bigger than that, just because once you start getting too many people into the study groups, it starts to really mess up the flow of what you guys are trying to do. A lot of times you'll be focused on a topic, and then one person will say something that has not really anything to do with this, and then that person will respond to that, and before you know it, you guys are 10 minutes talking about nothing that has to do with what you guys are supposed to be focusing on. So find you a small 3 to 4 person group to study with, and again, just because you start studying with somebody doesn't mean you have to finish the whole year studying with that person. Or just because y'all study with each other in criminal procedure doesn't mean y'all have to study with each other in contracts. You might have different study groups depending on different classes, but for the most part, I kept my same study group with few changes throughout my first 2 years. After that, you're kind of on your own because you guys are all going to be taking different classes once you reach semester 5 and 6. So, but for those first 2 years, find you a study group, find you some reliable people who are not going to be rescheduling on you or canceling on you. Find some reliable folks that you can have some study groups with. I would also say, and this is just more so my preference, find you people that are like-minded. If you are Chicken Little, where everything is the end of the world, you might not want to be in a study group with that person. If you are somebody who doesn't take anything serious because everything has always come easy to them, you might not want to be in a study group with that person. So find somebody who understands the importance of everybody, succeeding, not somebody who's going to harbor information from you. Find people that are transparent, who want you to win. Law school can be competitive. It never was that for me. I didn't really care about giving my lecture notes to anybody because it is what it is. As long as I'm passing, I end up graduating with a 3.1. As long as I'm passing, I didn't care whose grades were better than mine. I didn't care if they got a A on an exam and I got a B. But again, find people that are like-minded. Find people that are like you. If y'all are the gunners, find other gunners. If y'all are the more laid back, find people that fit your personality traits so that y'all can have productive study groups. What I would not recommend is getting into the big group chat. So they have GroupMe is what my section was using, and I think at the beginning they had anybody who wanted to join. So the group chat might have 60, 70, 80 people in it. And to me, that is a very, very big distraction. I didn't last long in that. I got out of it really early just because it would mess with my anxiety. I don't like people outside of what's necessary messing up my flow. So if we get in there and Chicken Little starts and then everybody starts pounding on and now everybody's confused, well, I didn't hear that, what about this? No, I'm okay. So again, there's no death sentences in law school. Like if you miss something, you're gonna be okay. If you're late on an assignment, you're going to be okay. Again, once you start compounding bad habits and late assignments, that's when you have to start worrying. But those little, I missed when he said this case, or I missed this discussion post by 4 points or whatever, all of that stuff, you're going to be okay. So just keep everything in perspective, but do not let the noise cause you to be stressed, because that's going to be the killer of more than anything else. Your stress and your ability to handle that stress is going to be what separates you from the people who succeed and the people who don't. So I would be very cognizant of that. And then again, just be mindful of the staff. Everybody there is human. A lot of those, the law community, the legal community is very small, whether you're from California, whether you're from Las Vegas, or if you even live there in St. Paul, people talk. So you want to make sure that you have you don't have to be everybody's best friend, but you want to make sure that you have a pretty decent reputation going into Mitchell Hamline, and by the time you leave, having a pretty decent reputation. There's more than enough help on campus when it comes to the people that work in the front office, whether it's your professors. They are human, and a lot of times they want you to come talk to them. So go talk to them. Obviously, if the vibe isn't right, leave them alone. Don't be a pester, but talk to them, get some insight, learn what you can, and before you know it, you'll be graduating. So when it comes to certain extracurricular things that you can do once you have, gotten comfortable with the routine of law school, I would highly recommend joining some of the affinity groups, getting plugged into the know of what's going on, and then, you can make whatever decisions that you like. So for instance, for me, I was part of the Veteran Student Association. It was basically the Law Student Association for veterans. I was also part of BOLSA, which is the Black Law Students Association. During my 2L year, they might do it for 1L as well, but I did the Student Bar Association. I was my section's voted representative for 2L Student Bar Association, and essentially what you do with that is when it's essentially a government within a student government. It's almost like being a student body president at a high school or something like that. But when there are people that have issues with, whether it's with the staff, whether it's with the campus, you take those issues and you report them to whoever the student body president is, and then they can, relay that stuff to the school itself. So that's what I did. You don't have to join any of all that stuff. If it's a distraction for you, it's a distraction for you. Nobody's going to punish you. The reality is, once you graduate, a lot of that stuff doesn't matter anyways. But I would say it does help with getting and becoming part of certain communities. It does help with getting out of your comfort zone. And I truly believe law school is all about connections, because once you become an attorney, those connections really matter depending on what type of law you want to practice. As a solo firm owner, I highly recommend getting in those groups, making those connections, so that when you are an attorney and you have a case in California, or you have a case in Texas, or you have a case in Florida, all of which I've experienced, I'm able to reach out to somebody, send them that case, help out their business, and in turn hope that in the future they help out my business. So again, don't be a hermit the entire time that you're in law school. Get out, meet people, and do things. This might be the most important part of the video to me, is the bar prep classes. The whole purpose of law school is to prepare you to pass the bar. Some people decide they don't. So when I went through law school, depending on what your GPA was after your first year, the bar classes were mandatory. I believe it was a 2.8. If you had a below a 2.8, you had to take the bar classes. And I think maybe another class. If you had over a 2.9, you didn't have to take those bar classes. I think I finished my 1L year with a 3.0 or maybe a 3.2, somewhere around there. So I didn't have to take the bar classes when they came up. However, I did take them when they came up. And one of the classes focuses on the MBE portion of the bar, and then the other part focuses on the essay portion of the bar and the MPT. Both are highly, highly, highly recommended if you want to start bar prep before the actual bar prep. If you're from out of town, such as Nevada, where you don't have a UBE bar, these classes still are very helpful. Obviously, you're going to learn, if you don't know now, some states do their own bar. Some states are under the uniform bar examination, where if you pass with a high enough score, you can practice in about 30 different states. I don't know the exact number, but it might be more than that. But some states like Nevada have their own bar exam. These Mitchell-Hamline classes still are very important, and they helped out tremendously when it came to studying for the Nevada bar. I was able to pass the Nevada bar the first time. After that, I went back and took the Minnesota bar. I was able to pass that the first time. And I have my Mitchell-Hamline diploma here, my state of Minnesota Supreme Court bar admission, and my Nevada bar admission. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend taking those bar prep classes. The professors who put those on, they're remarkable. They will help you out, but at the end of the day, you have to put the work in. If things haven't changed, Mitchell-Hamline uses Themis as their bar prep, preferred bar prep, and once you pay that in your tuition, so that when you get to bar prep, it's already there, it's already set up for you, and it will be state specific for you. So if you're worried about Mitchell-Hamline not covering things for your state, Themis will make that up for you. And I didn't have any issues. Granted, I also connected with some attorneys here in Nevada, asked them for their bar prep notes, asked them for advice, and I also hired a tutor to help me pass the bar. I knew in my heart of hearts, I only wanted to take it once, just like everybody. But the reality is I wanted to exhaust every option before taking it the first time, so that I wouldn't have to, I failed it, so now let me get the tutor, or I failed it, now let me reach out to these attorneys and get their notes. I did all of that the first time, and by the grace of God, I was able to pass. And even if you don't pass the first time, I actually don't like saying this, so I probably shouldn't be saying this, but it's not the end of the world. It really is not the end of the world. However, get it done the first time. Get it done the first time. Do whatever you have to do to get it done the first time. And I truly believe that the bar prep classes at Mitchell-Hamline are more than worth it. You have to take classes anyways. If you decide you don't want to take the bar prep classes at Mitchell-Hamline, you have electives that you can take. You have different things. So if you have to take classes anyways, you might as well take something that's going to benefit you in the long run. So in summary, this video is probably already long. I didn't want it to be that long. In summary, my thoughts on Mitchell Hamline, I loved it. I really did. I talked to one of my guys down in Florida. I talked to him almost every day. We weren't even in the same section, but you'll find friends. I talked to my homegirl who lives in Texas. I talked to a law school best friend that lives in Minnesota. I talk to her fairly often. You'll find people in your cohort, or even that's not in your cohort, that you'll be friends with and have a bond with for life. I highly recommend it, that when you come from these different environments, whether you're from out of the country, we had people that were from out of the country, we had people from at least 45 states in the year that I went. I don't know how that really works, but you'll meet so many different people. You'll have lasting relationships with them. So make sure that you are meeting these people, getting out, connecting with them. You also want to make sure, and again, just to summarize, make sure that you get the Quimbee. Make sure that you get the short and happy guides. Find you some good outlines. Don't try to do law school by yourself without any supplements or just relying on the professors. That's not a very smart idea. Find these supplements, these horn books, find them, use them, and they will be beneficial. In terms of community, find you a small group. Make sure that you are keeping the main thing with these groups. Don't get in it. Sometimes law school can be like high school in terms of the drama, the gossip. Focus on you, focus on getting through, and focus on passing the bar. That's the most important part. But more than anything, enjoy the experience. Before you know it, law school is going to be done. You're going to be graduating. And I say that's when the real work begins. Being an attorney, I enjoy it. However, it's not easy. Embrace the simple entry level of law school while you have it, because at the end of the day, once you get out, once you become an attorney, that's when the real work begins. So if you have any questions, drop it in the comments. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Are you thinking about going to Mitchell Hamline? Or have you been accepted already and you start soon? Watch this video. This is everything you need to know.